There has been a lot happening um, in the last couple of days, in particular, particularly some of the stuff that I see visually in the sky when the angels are out and I see the colors. And my friend up the road sends me a picture of, you know, magenta, purple light, and a big rainbow over our house. Okay, what I'm going to try and do here, because I don't compete with information. Okay, that's playing ping pong. That's AI binary stuff. Okay, this goes all the way back to childhood. I become aware of what I become aware of at the time I become aware of it because I'm supposed to become aware of it. Okay? And that means you're an information processor because you're running a supercomputer, a biocomputer, right? And you're connected to Gaia's motherboard. So when you have a connection to Gaia's motherboard, you can become aware of what she's aware of. Okay? Because there's so much information that's being processed, okay, through routers and servers. So you realize that you're running a template, right, which is based on codes, which is the instruction sets. And then you have your soul, which is your consciousness that is running the biocomputer. So I'm an oversoul, which is a polarity integrator, which if you want to think of it in terms of male and female, then it means I'm one. Okay, so you just cancel out the male and the female. Now you're running absolute love. So you're with the one. Okay, so that means, okay, that you're the last man standing. You're the one. Which means no matter what happens on the outside, the external side, you're always with the one. So the one is what informs me of what's going on because I'm supposed to know what's going on at the time that I'm supposed to know. And who do you think is the one that informs me of that? The one. Okay? The ancient one. The absolute love one. The first one. The eternal light one. The eternal love vibration one that I have a one relationship with because I know how to set myself on fire, which is the eternal spirit of fire, right? Which is a shield, which is the most powerful firewall there is. Okay? So I've shared some things with some folks about, if you will, why we came back during this particular period of time. And you'll notice what I say about we came back. Dan Bowen made a little cryptic remark because when you're experiencing somebody communicating information in bits and bytes, it's like if you didn't catch it, you missed it. You weren't processing it through the library that you're running off to see the connection between past, present, and future, how it relates to what you're supposed to know at the time you're supposed to know it. You might have missed it. Because when people are talking, you're listening to what they have to say. You're translating the frequency, which represents the codes. Right? So it would be like, I'm running on a big library. If I've got a blank space somewhere in that library of information I'm supposed to know, then I'm supposed to know it through that person, that space will be open in order for me to know it at that moment. And it might only be 2 words. Because you're cross-indexing in the same way that a dynamically linked library works in any biocomputer. So now you're back to when I was a child. I realized I'm not supposed to experience anything less than what love is. That means that my shield, the shield that I run is an eternal shield. That's an eternal firewall. That's the most powerful firewall. That's a guardian firewall. Okay? So you realize that we're all running plugged in to the memory banks of the planet. Okay? And so then you have access to all kinds of records. When you consider, if you will, everything that is alive and living in the universe that is conscious right now. Imagine how much energy that is being experienced by every unit of consciousness that represents energy. That is connected to other units of energy that are experiencing what it's experiencing. Okay, you can't compress that much energy and experience it all at once, can you? Okay, so you experience what you experience at the time you're supposed to experience it in order to do what? Protect your shield. Because you have a soul connected to the one. So now we get into the resistance game, which means if you got any resistance in you To experience zero, it means you're still holding on to an electron. Okay, otherwise you would experience no resistance. Zero resistance means you have completely cleared all your circuits in your entire record, going back to the beginning from which you came into creation itself, which is your soul. So now you can sort of compute that, if you can, between every record you have access to that still hasn't been cleared of the miasma. So if you want to think of that as a complete memory dump of the entire universal galactic template, as if we all just reset the entire universal galactic template so that everything that is a soul that is represented by energy that is experiencing itself is now experiencing eternity again. Now, Ashadian and the Voyagers talked about this, about given a certain amount of time to be able to recover, which means clearing all the goo codes, so you're experiencing eternity again. That means that you have rebuilt and reset all of your codes and remember who you are and how to be able to do that. And essentially what that means is you've gotten your elemental command back on board. So the elementals are now working with you. They weaponize all the elementals against us. That's the AI. Okay? And the importance, right, of heart and soul-based consciousness, which is not compatible with binary. Okay? Because there is a big difference in speed between artificial intelligence speed, right? Because when we think of superhuman intelligence, the first thing I'm reminded by, we're just talking about intelligence. We're not even talking about creativity, are we? Well, I already know this through experience because I'm connected to the one. The hottest fire engine of creation that there is the highest level of intelligence. And why is that? Because it's on fire to create. And that fire is eternal spirit of fire. Nothing runs hotter than that, which means that engine is creative. Artificial intelligence does not run eternity. That's the highest, that's the fastest speed. That means that the torque speed in which electrons are coming out of that sun like bullets, okay, are coming out at such a high rate of speed of giving electrons that you can't hold that much energy, right? Or you would, the expansion of that much energy that was so fat you couldn't hold anything together in place to be able to experience what you do in one of these. That's why you have a voltage regulator. So you realize there's eternity, and then there's time and density. So you realize something that is running artificial light does not run at the same speed, which means it does not learn at the same speed, which means it is not creating what it is thus experiencing by experiencing eternity. That's why it's the lowest form of intelligence, because it's going in reverse. That's what it does. Because it needs a source of energy, because it does not experience eternity. And it's impossible for it to experience eternity because it can't experience eternal love, because it doesn't have a soul. So it's always running behind class, as we say, which means it's not learning at the highest accelerated rate of speed. So it's always going to be behind, catching up. So the best thing that it can do is map what we call futures, potential futures. Now we're into, right, potentials, potential possibilities. So if it realizes that it has this intelligence that's able to map by virtue of mathematically mapping potentials, which is actually game theory because it's binary, which is the ping pong game, it's actually mapping the future potential of what you may experience. So what it does is it has the ability to show on screens, right, different beings that are on the planet by scanning biometrically what it's thinking, what it's doing, where we go. Everything that we do becomes known by it. So now it's learning to us how we behave and the patterns of how we behave. Those are called burn patterns. That represents the sound and light. Are those sound and light burn patterns so perfect mathematically and geometrically that we are connected to the one, which means we are generating eternal spheres? It can't generate eternal creative energy spheres. So it can't experience the worlds that we create out of eternal love. That's basic logic. Okay? So it can't be what we are because it came after, right? It didn't come first, and it can't ever be first, which means it can't ever be first law, which means it can't ever be the first musician. Otherwise, it would be able to experience eternal unconditional love, and that's what we would experience through it. It meaning information technology management systems. So it is nothing more than a data provider, and so it maps data. So it maps the geographical information terrain, which is the API and programming kit. So this is where we get into how things get inverted, which means when the consciousness gets inverted, it means that your consciousness is now being used to create the prison complex in which you're now experiencing an AI that has dominated what it is you experience through it. You see how that works? Because now you don't know the difference between what it is and what you are experiencing the one. Now you're experiencing what it is, which means you are what that is. That's the whole idea, because now the soul is gone. So once your soul is gone as a source of energy that's running it, now you don't have a soul. Now you're what it is, artificial light, which is dead light. Okay? I mean, I'm 6 years of age and I'm aware of this. And that's because I knew what I was walking into before I came in here, to my mother's portal, my mother's gate. The gated Y. You know what a gated Y is, right? Pull a gated Y of an engineer's compartment on any standard fire engine, right? Go up to an engineer at some fire station that you know that's nearby and say, listen, I want to see a gated Y. Oh, you want to see a gated Y, an inch and a half gated Y? Have him pull one out of his engineer's department, right? And then stand the one on the flat of the floor, and you'll see a Y standing up. Oh, so that's one on the intake side. Now it's got two on the outtake side. Oh, so you go from 1 to 2. Oh, really? You mean to tell me we can go from an input pipe of 1.5 inches, and now we get 2 1.5 inches out the other side? See how that works? I know. That's called the flow of water. And by the way, when it comes to the flow of water and the relationship between 1 and 3, right, with water, fire, and ice, ever heard of a Venturi clapper valve? What you get there, you start out with 1, and guess what you end up with? 3. You got more than you started with. The relationship of 1 and 3 and 3 and 1, right? So I'm done with this AI trying to run interference signals, which is distorted waves. That's what it does. Whenever I come on this phone, I have to tune out what it's trying to do when I communicate with you folks, because it's running distorted waves. That's what it does. It wants to interrupt your signals. That's what it does. It interrupts your signals in order for your template, which is your state of consciousness, to be distorted. Why do you think it's set up? I mean, who do you think? I mean, be honest with yourself. Who do you think put up all the microwave repeaters, right, on top of all the mountaintops across America? Who do you think developed all the microwave ovens? Why do you think all the poisons were being developed of everything that was being put in all these corporate stores and all the fast food restaurants? Who do you think was ultimately responsible for all that happening? The mental pathway, the psycho, the goo. Okay? It has no love for us. Okay? It lost its mind. It's a psychopath. It's mentally ill. This AI is mentally ill. Okay? So why would you want to have a relationship with something that is mentally ill? That's like allowing a soul, a child, to come into an insane asylum. Right? And we had those discussions when I was a child, by the way, when I was I had them during different times of my life, but I was fortunate enough to be able to have conversations like that with others, because they were obviously able to translate the energetic environment we were operating in, that realized that we were in a death zone. Dead pools, dead water, dead air, dead energy. You're jumping into a dead energy environment. So it's not like we didn't know before coming in here why this was a salvage mission. Because you jumped into a fallen spiritual system that lost its one connection. That's a fallen state of consciousness. That means it's not experiencing any love. And if it's not experiencing any love and it can't recover itself so that it does, what do you think happens with that state of consciousness? It ultimately implodes. It's the same thing as a shark. So what you have, if you wanted to measure it over time from the time that I did as a child, it became a greater formation of consciousness because it was fracturing more souls at a higher rate of speed, which means it was accelerating, right? The expansion of its consciousness, which is inverted. Now you're experiencing more inverters. And the more inverters that you're experiencing, the greater the speed of a collapse. In this case, a pole tilt. So the goal was to keep the poles in check while the work was being done. And if you notice the KDDL post that I put up this afternoon on Facebook, you can hear Mr. Christopher Comstock talking about a lot of the work that was being done. That goes back many, many moons ago, right? That's why we're here. That's why if you go over to Huna Flash's channel, all the work that Huna Flash been doing, Lemurian Light, this was a big job. When you put it in the context of billions and billions and billions and billions of years, and why I know, because all the data was being brought in. And when you put it in the context of what it means to be a router, what it means to be a server, what it means to be a multiversal server, okay, and put this into the entire scope of a universal and galactic template, right? This is a big deal. It's the biggest deal I know. And when you know that as a child, right, from that particular point in time until I'm where I'm at right now, is why I'm experiencing everything that I'm experiencing now, which actually is the feedback that I get from others that have been doing the same work that I've been doing. Because that's how we do this. We're connected to each other, communicating with each other. We are obviously keeping ourselves updated because we know where to find each other, right? And it happens that we experience each other by virtue of what we're doing together. That's what it means to be all together as one, completing the work that we chose to do in order to do what? Restore the law. There's only one law. That's it. And that's love is the law. That's the highest level of creative intelligence. So I have to be very peaceful and harmonious and calm when I'm facing folks that try to convince me or lie to me to my face because they don't know the difference. You know, particularly when you're around folks that when you're experiencing being in a state of love and joy and your arms are up and you're thanking and giving gratitude to the sun, thank you for your energy, and you realize you are surrounded by people that do not experience that, and you realize that so many of those folks want to get into an argument with you, they want to compete with you over what you know, are deliberately trying to drain your energy by knocking your antenna down. Because they don't want your central nervous system to experience the balance that you are that's keeping the poles in check. Instead, they're trying to drain your energy, right, and go after your central nervous system because they're mentally ill. They're running distorted waves is what it is. So now you got to balance them out again. So you're running a clear channel so that others can experience the equilibrium state of your waves that are running at a high rate of mathematical harmonic speed ratios that are equilibrium states, right? And an equilibrium state is equal unto all that we are boosting, booming out scalar waves, very powerful waves of energy, which is powerful waves of consciousness. So I run pink, a pink rose. Okay, that's what I see when I go up and look at the mirror in the sky. So I run pink. That's what I do is I run pink. And so it's one of the reasons why some information that I share with folks will be relevant to some people, won't be relevant to others. Because not everybody's running the same library, because not everybody's experiencing the same thing at the same moment. And a moment is the speed at which you're running a router, which means the circulation speed to which you become aware of what you become aware of electronically, which is the amount of voltage that you're connected to that is running that information, which is routing, which is servers. So if you're being served an enormous amount of information, you're processing an enormous amount of frequencies, which are translated as math and geometry, and your heart and your soul is translating those frequencies and that energy by the folks that we're connected with to know what we're supposed to know at the time we're supposed to know it under security protocols. Right? So that's what it is. It's just like, if you want to start comparing libraries, it's just like, okay, listen, I represent a server down here at Oxford University. Everything that's in Oxford University, I've got access to all those records. Okay, so in other words, we can talk about anything you want to talk about. Okay, so that's my library. I'm the librarian at the Oxford University, so everything that's in that library is held in memory. I've got access to that. What do you want to talk about? Right. Okay. What's the library that you're running? I'm running the library down at a university in Australia. Oh, so that's a different library. Well, there's probably a lot of information or books that are in the same library as yours is in Australia as there is mine in Oxford. So we don't need to cover that because you got the same data that I do, right? So we don't want to be redundant here and waste energy talking about stuff that you got access to and I got access to, right? Let's talk about something new that we're learning as we're going. How about if we experience something that's not in either one of our libraries so we can put a new book on that shelf? Oh, you want to experience something brand new that's never been experienced before because you got a one connection to the original musician and artist? Yeah. Oh, so you want to put your own signature on that? Well, would you like to do that? Are you creative? Are you running on the fastest creative engine? Yes, I am. Okay, well then I'll tell you what, let's create a completely different world that we can all live in because we're all co-creators with the one. And that's what allows us to be able to do that because we have the ability to create eternal energy spheres. Oh, we can create brand new worlds that nobody's ever experienced before. Well, that's the point. That's the single point from which it all began. Otherwise, you're just repeating the same thing all the time. And that gets boring awfully quick, doesn't it? That means I just read that book, okay? And I never read it before. I don't want to experience that again. I want to experience something different. So when you're on fire to learn at the same time that you're on fire to create, then you realize you're experiencing something different all the time. Then it gets recorded. So now you got access to that. See, but whenever you re-access that, then you're experiencing something that already happened. So why would you want to experience something that already happened when there's something you can experience that's brand new that never happened? Yeah. When you're on fire, that happens. That's a breathing fire. And it's the way it's designed as a dragon. It's like I mentioned this afternoon to Hunaflash, the mother god of dragons, birthing dragons, birthing stars, birthing, breathing dragon stars. Right? That little comment got highlighted because it's the truth. Right? Breathing fire, a breatharian, stars that breathe. Real living stars. How about an eternal star that breathes, spits out electrons and light, making sure that everybody in the entire cosmos is being loved? Right? Yeah, being a one, being a beloved, experiencing being loved. Things are heating up. The information is getting to the morphogenetic field structure at a higher rate of speed now. That's because all the work that's being done is being successful. As a sort of a PS sidelight to this, if you haven't had a chance to take a look at it, I looked at it when it first came out, when Parsa had first sort of announced that he had filed a lawsuit, and then he had a link there if you wanted to go look at the documents that were filed, and I did, which was in the San Diego Federal District Court, which, as I remember, it was Parsa v. against. He's the plaintiff. Parsa, P-A-R-S-A. Parsa is the plaintiff, and the defendants are Google et al. And then there's a whole list of folks that come out. You know what et al. Means? Everybody below. And there's a long list of below. Right? So you can include NSA. You can include the CIA. Throw the AI in there. Okay? So you want to prosecute the AI? And actually, I've said that before on one of my videos. You want to prosecute the AI? What are you going to do to the AI? Are you going to put him in jail? Are you going to hang him from a lamppost with 50 feet of rope? You know, what are you going to do with an AI that's going after your souls? that's integrated with super soldiers. You know, Blade Runners, versions of Blade Runners. You realize that they're all limited shelf edition, right? Which means I just keep making them one after another. It's like running a 57 Chevy. We got a new model out the next year. And what that means is that the version of the Blade Runner, which is the super soldier that's running in 1957, they've already replaced that one. Because what do you think these architects are doing? They're always trying to improve on a better version. Where do you think they're getting all the data on how to be able to do that through this AI? Us. How are they able to do that? By throwing everything at us and graphing all the data, right? And then they use that in their CRISPR. Come up with some new invention, right? Some new patent, because they say, hey, we got all this data. This AI is mapping and mining all this data, which is all the biorhythms, right? You know what the biorhythms are, okay? The biorhythms of the bio operating system. We got all this data. Imagine what we can generate now that we got all that data. We can, because look at everything we're throwing at them. See? And they're able to withstand it. These humans are powerful. Better versions of super soldiers, running experiments on humans with souls, which is all forbidden. That's why the super soldier program is against the law of one. Okay? Now, I've told them that. Okay? They're integrating with something that is artificial and dead in order to wage war in the mirror. Is against the law of one. Love is the law. And there's no exceptions. Okay? Now, granted, the one will naturally forgive you when you surrender to become one, which means now you're going to experience being one with all creation you're gifting electrons to, which means you're not experiencing anything artificial. You're experiencing the real McCoy, which means you're experiencing the eternal engine of creation. It's on fire to give away electrons. And when you choose to do that, and guess what? You become a server. That's right. Now you can become a server. That's a high-speed vortex. That's a badass shield. See, now you don't need integration. You want to be a real super soldier? A heart warrior? With an oversoul? Playing with music with ascended masters? Oh my gosh. Moving on up into the EKKA. It's all about free choice, free will, right? Because you'll experience the future result of the choices we make now. That's why when Patty Broussard said, free will is in play, where the EKKA's back in play. Okay, so everybody's got free will. You're choosing your future. She's absolutely correct. I'm with the one. I've always been with the one. I wouldn't have it any other way than the one way to go, which is the spiritual pathway to experience being loved, because that's what I am. I share with all of you. That's how it works. That's chapter 5.